Forget what your textbooks taught you. The Civil War wasn't a tidy battle of North versus South or heroes versus villains. It was a swirling chaos of hypocrisies, cosmic ironies, and jaw-dropping absurdities that history tried to bury. Abraham Lincoln, the Great Emancipator, arguing black people could never live alongside whites, while Confederate states cited white supremacy in their secession documents, yet enlisted Native Americans to fight for their cause. Union troops, hailed as liberators, became tools of frontier genocide. Emancipation came with shocking loopholes, and soldiers died for economies they never controlled. Why did Lincoln wait 3 years to free enslaved people, and only in rebel states? How did northern factories bankroll slavery while fighting to end it? And why did phantom limbs haunt amputee soldiers before anesthesia was even invented? Before we continue, please like and subscribe to our channel to support our growing community. If you're ready for the real story. What if everything you learned about the Civil War is a half-truth? Or worse, a flat-out lie? Forget the polished statues and textbook simplifications. This war was steeped in contradictions, hypocrisy, and buried truths that defy the simple North versus South, freedom versus slavery narrative. Lincoln's racism and opposition to racial equality. Abraham Lincoln openly declared, "I do not, nor ever have, supported social or political equality between white and black people. I oppose letting black people vote, serve on juries, hold office, or marry white people." He believed racial differences made coexistence impossible and warned that mixed-race children would weaken white supremacy. Though he opposed slavery, he was not an abolitionist and advocated for colonizing freed blacks outside the U.S. as late as 1862. The Emancipation Proclamation's cynical loopholes. Lincoln's 1863 proclamation only freed enslaved people in Confederate states, where he had no authority, while preserving slavery in Union-loyal border states, Kentucky, Delaware, Maryland, Missouri, and Union-controlled regions of the South. This military measure excluded 500,000 enslaved people, revealing emancipation as a tactical weapon, not a moral stand. As Frederick Douglass noted, freedom was won by the enslaved themselves through escape and enlistment, forcing Lincoln's hand. Northern complicity in slavery's economy. Chapter: Cotton profiteering. Northern factories depended on Southern cotton, taxed to fund the Union war effort. Northern bankers and ship owners financed plantations, while tariffs on cotton exports generated federal revenue. Border state slavery. Lincoln exempted Union-loyal states from emancipation to avoid political backlash. Delaware and Kentucky kept slavery until the 13th Amendment, 1865. Confederate soldiers fought for independence, not slavery. 89% of Confederate troops owned no slaves, and 75% of Southern whites were non-slave holders. Most were poor farmers conscripted via a draft that exempted owners of 20-plus slaves, sparking class resentment as a rich man's war, poor man's fight. Secession documents explicitly cited white supremacy and slavery, but soldiers saw themselves as defending homes against invasion, echoing 1776 patriots. Native Americans trapped between genocidal powers. Tribes like the Cherokee allied with the Confederacy, hoping for autonomy from Union expansion. Stand Watie, Cherokee, became a Confederate general, while others like the Creek fought under Daniel McIntosh. Post-war, the Union deployed Buffalo Soldiers, black troops, to displace Native communities, forcing one oppressed group to oppress another. The draft's brutal inequality. The Confederacy's 1862 draft banned hiring substitutes, but exempted wealthy slaveholders. Meanwhile, the Union paid black soldiers half the wage of white troops until 1864. Poor Southerners died for plantations they didn't own. Poor Northerners died for factories they didn't control. Emancipation delayed for political expediency. Lincoln waited until 1863 to issue the Emancipation Proclamation because he feared border states defecting to the Confederacy. He believed immediate abolition would alienate racist Northerners. His preliminary proclamation, 1862, even urged compensation for slaveholders and colonization of freed blacks. Union perpetrated native genocide. Post-war, Union generals like George Custer led massacres against Native Americans aided by federal policies. Sand Creek, 1864. U.S. soldiers scalped women and children parading body parts in Denver. Wounded Knee, 1890. 350. Lakota slaughtered, with 20 soldiers awarded Medals of Honor. Sterilization programs. By 1976, 70,000 Native women were forcibly sterilized by U.S. agencies. Asterisk the myth of Confederate states' rights. While post-war lost cause narratives framed secession as a fight for states' rights, Confederate states explicitly named slavery in their secession declarations. Mississippi called slavery the greatest material interest. Confederate Vice President Alexander Stephens declared it the nation's cornerstone. White supremacy as the war's unifying thread. Both sides upheld racism. The North barred black voting and intermarriage. Illinois criminalized free black residency beyond 10 days. Lincoln bluntly stated, "If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it." Aftermath. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery but permitted penal labor, while Jim Crow laws rebuilt racial hierarchies nationwide. The Civil War wasn't just North versus South, it was a collision of contradictions. Let's confront the messy realities both sides ignore. The Confederate soldier myth. 89% of Confederate troops owned no slaves. 75% of Southern whites were non-slaveholders. Most were poor farmers, ages 15 to 60, fighting for independence. Not slavery. We fight to be let alone. Jefferson Davis. The Union's hidden hypocrisy. Lincoln's primary goal, preserve the Union, not abolish slavery, until 1863. Suspended habeas corpus. Jailed dissidents. Invaded sovereign states. Northern factories depended on Southern cotton, taxed for war profits. Union soldiers often shared the same racist views as Confederates. Slavery's brutal reality. Despite Confederate claims, their Constitution banned slave imports, but kept existing slavery. Enslaved people were forced to support armies through labor. Only when desperate did some states allow black soldiers, late war, America's double genocide. While condemning Southern slavery, the Union committed. Native American massacres, e.g. Sand Creek, sent Buffalo soldiers, black troops, to displaced tribes. Expanded manifest destiny through broken treaties and scalping. Cherokee General Stanwaty, last Confederate to surrender. War's staggering cost. 620,000 plus deaths. More than all other U.S. wars combined. Cultural divide widened by Northern immigration versus Southern tradition. Lincoln excluded from Southern ballots in 1860, fueling secession fears. The ultimate irony. Southerners saw themselves as 176 patriots, while denying liberty to millions. The Union ended slavery while exterminating native nations. Most Southerners weren't rebels. They believed they were the true heirs of 1776. As descendants of early British settlers, they saw secession as their patriotic duty. All we ask is to be let alone. Governments only rule with the people's consent. The spark. After Lincoln's election, 7 states seceded peacefully. When Lincoln called 75,000 troops to invade the South, 4 more joined. Jefferson Davis declared, All we want is self-rule. No war unless forced. Fort Sumter, the matchstick. Confederates demanded Fort Sumter's surrender. Lincoln sent supply ships. Southern troops bombarded the fort, not to start a war, but to prevent invasion. Lincoln's response? Invasion orders. Tyranny echoes. Southerners saw Lincoln as a new King George, suspended, habeas corpus, jailed Maryland's leaders, seized private weapons, sent troops against civilians. Sound familiar? To them, it mirrored British oppression before 1776. An army of principle. 200,000 volunteers rushed to defend their vision, farmers and landowners, tied to soil, not factories. Revolutionary bloodlines. Patrick Henry's grandson of Give Me Liberty. Fame. Robert Tyler Jones, President's grandson, at Gettysburg. Robert E. Lee, son of a Washington comrade. Democratic units. Soldiers voted for their own sergeants. Leadership edge. Experienced U.S. Army officers, Lee, Jackson, Stewart, resigned to lead. At Gettysburg, General Armistead fought his best friend, Union General Winfield Hancock, under the very flag his uncle defended in 1812. The irony: they fought for self-governance, quoting revolutionary principles, yet built their new nation on enslaved labor. Despite being outnumbered and under-resourced, the Confederacy held out for 4 brutal years. What drove their relentless resistance? Let's break it down. Soldiers of conviction. Most Confederate troops weren't professional soldiers. They were farmers defending their homes, families, and way of life. Unlike the Union Army, few were immigrants. Their fierce commitment echoed the spirit of 1776. As General Lee declared, "If we win, we gain everything. If we lose everything." This wasn't just a war, it was a fight for survival. Relentless tactics and grit. Against overwhelming odds, Confederate forces punched above their weight. Defensive masters. At battles like Fredericksburg, entrenched Confederates inflicted massive casualties, 13,353 Union versus 4,576 Confederate. Shock tactics. Their infamous rebel yell terrified even seasoned Union troops. Leadership. Genius. West Point grads like Lee and Jackson used terrain and speed to outmaneuver larger Union armies. One observer described them as gaunt, hollow-eyed, yet they kept fighting. Staggering Union losses. Confederate resilience cost the Union dearly. The Wilderness, 1864, 18,000 Union casualties. Spotsylvania, 18,000 Union versus 12,000 Confederate. Cold Harbor, 13,000 Union versus 2,500 Confederate. Poorly planned Union charges, like Burnside's at Fredericksburg, played into Confederate hands. The draft and sacrifice. Facing shortages, the Confederacy enacted a strict 1862 draft. All white men 18 to 35 served, no substitutions. Yet volunteers still came. Units like the 45th North Carolina started with 2,597 men and ended with just 95. Why they fell. Passion couldn't overcome reality. Resource gap. For every fallen Northerner, a fresh replacement arrived. Union armies burned cities. Atlanta, Richmond. Confederates starved. Religious desperation. As defeat neared, revivals swept camps. Soldiers prayed and sang hymns. The inevitable. Despite inflicting horrific losses, the Confederacy couldn't sustain the fight. Even Union commanders later saluted their bravery. Independence or extinction. That's how Confederate soldiers saw their fight, defending homes and self-governance, not slavery, in their eyes. Jefferson Davis vowed, This war won't end until our generation is dead or you recognize our right to govern ourselves. But history demands we ask harder questions. Why did 620,000 die for an economy most never owned? How could both sides uphold racism while claiming moral high ground? Was Lincoln's delay cowardice or cold strategy? Should the Union's native massacres cancel its hero label? This war's ghosts still walk among us. Its bloodiest battles, Antietam, the Wilderness, Cold Harbor, weren't just clashes of armies. They were explosions of ideology, sacrifice, and contradiction. So drop your hottest take below. Was this a war for freedom, for power, for survival? History isn't settled, it's debated.